Black Hollow. The name itself hung heavy in the air, a shroud of whispers clinging to the old town. And at the edge of town, where the trees pressed close and shadows stretched long, stood Holloway House. Its silhouette, a jagged scar against the dying light, was a constant reminder of the darkness that had seeped into its very foundation. The house was once grand, a testament to a family's prosperity. Now it was a skeletal husk, windows like vacant eyes staring out at the world. The paint peeled like scabs, revealing the rotting wood beneath. The front porch, once a place of warm welcomes, sagged under the weight of neglect and decay. The swing creaked rhythmically in the wind, a mournful sound that echoed through the empty rooms. Locals knew to avoid the place. Children whispered tales of the house on the hill, their voices hushed, their eyes wide with fear. They spoke of cold spots, disembodied voices, and a presence that watched from the shadows. But the stories were more than just childish fancy. They were rooted in a history steeped in tragedy, a history that clung to the house like the scent of decay. It began, as these stories often do, with a family. The Holloways were prominent figures in Black Hollow, their wealth matched only by their apparent happiness. They were the picture of a loving family, their laughter echoing through the halls of the grand old house. But beneath the surface, a darkness was brewing, a darkness that whispered in the shadows and preyed on the vulnerable. Richard Holloway, the patriarch, was a stern man, his heart hardened by the pursuit of wealth. He ruled his family with an iron fist, demanding obedience and respect. His wife, Eleanor, was a gentle soul, a stark contrast to her husband's harsh demeanour. She sought solace in her daughter, Abigail, a bright and imaginative child who filled the house with laughter. Yet, even Abigail's innocence couldn't fully penetrate the gloom that had settled over Holloway House. It was Eleanor who first noticed the whispers. They started subtly, a faint murmuring at the edge of her hearing. At first she dismissed them as tricks of the mind, the product of stress and fatigue, but the whispers persisted, growing louder, more insistent. They seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, slithering through the house like an unseen spectre. They spoke of secrets, of hidden resentments, of a darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect lives. Eleanor confided in her husband, but he dismissed her concerns, attributing them to her delicate constitution. He refused to acknowledge the possibility of something sinister invading their home. His skepticism, however, did little to quell Eleanor's growing unease. The whispers began to manifest in other ways. Objects moved inexplicably, furniture overturned, pictures fell from the walls with a crash. Abigail's toys would activate on their own, their cheerful melodies taking on a discordant, chilling tone. Sleep offered no escape. Eleanor would wake in the dead of night, a cold sweat clinging to her skin, the feeling of unseen eyes watching her every move. One particularly harrowing evening, as Eleanor sat by the fireplace attempting to read, she felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. Turning slowly, she saw a fleeting shadow retreat behind the heavy velvet curtains. Heart pounding in her chest, she cautiously approached the window, her hand trembling as she reached for the curtain's edge. Yanking it back, she found nothing. The room was empty, but the feeling of dread remained, a knot of fear tightening in her stomach. The whispers grew more distinct, their tone shifting from a murmur to a hiss. They whispered her name, taunting her, threatening to drag her down into the darkness that permeated the house. Driven to the brink, Eleanor tried to convince Richard to leave the house, to seek refuge elsewhere.